Newfoundland and Labrador's fast-moving wildfires this Monday night. The evacuations.
As long as we're safe. That's the main thing.
And how AI could help in Canada's firefight. Israel kills 6 journalists in Gaza.
The Israel government doesn't have any shame in admitting that it's targeting journalists.
Why the highest-profile victim knew he was in Israel's sights. A day of action from Air Canada's flight attendants, their demands for a raise and an end to unpaid work. Plus, Major League Baseball finally steps up to the plate.
The dream actually came true.
The league's first woman umpire, and why other sports lag behind.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with escalating wildfires from coast to coast to coast. It is hot and dry across much of the country, and new fires are being sparked as emergency crews try to gain control. The outlook is particularly dire in Atlantic Canada. In Newfoundland and Labrador, 7 fires are now burning out of control, and people close to a new blaze near the capital, St. John's, are on alert, ready to leave at a moment's notice. In New Brunswick, hundreds of people have been told to be ready to leave at short notice, too, as 3 big fires there keep growing. There are hundreds of out-of-control fires burning in nearly every province and territory. The Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre calls it the second worst wildfire season on record. Our coverage begins with Heidi Petracek, who is near St. John's tonight.
Some go to where the buildings reach to meet the cloud.
Larry Baldwin comes to the evacuee centre in Carbonear to offer comfort through song to friends, neighbours and even strangers who had to flee wildfire.
Yeah, you worry a lot about people and friends. I got friends and people who were affected. Hard for everybody. Kicking leaves that fall around me.
His own community is under evacuation alert. Residents like him who've lived there all their lives on standby in case the winds change as the largest wildfire burning in the province rages on.
Water bombers, air tractors and bucketing helicopters are working to keep continuous suppression to the northern edge of the fire, holding it back.
What's known as the Kingston wildfire has grown every day since it broke out more than a week ago and has now burnt more than 5,200 hectares, roughly the same area as half the size of Vancouver. Homes and buildings have been destroyed, but officials can't say for sure how many because it's too smoky and dangerous to see.
It's not safe to go into the area. You know, that's an area right now for first responders. They're actively fighting this fire, trying to protect as many properties as possible.
The most important thing is for us to get out.
Jane Morgan is among the 3,000 people who had to leave their homes in a hurry. She's hoping she'll be able to come back to her home and her precious family photos.
This is my sister and my mom and me.
The province announced financial assistance of $500 for households affected by evacuation orders. She's thankful she and her family got out.
I'm just hoping my home is still there when I get back. But I'm positive that whatever I left behind is still there. Right? Gotta be positive. As long as we're safe, that's the main thing.
With extra fire crews and more aircraft coming from Ontario, people are trying to find hope.
As long as we stick together, you know, as a community and as the whole shore here, we'll get through this.
And Donna, the situation actually got worse in the province today because of the wildfire you see behind me now. That's actually a different wildfire. That's about 20 kilometers from St. John's in an industrial park area. The area has been evacuated. There are road closures and firefighting efforts are underway, but the weather, again, is hot, dry, windy, not what you want for firefighting efforts. And St. John's right now is actually hosting thousands of athletes for the Canada Games. Donna.
All right, Heidi Petracek in Conception Bay, South Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks.
Which is that the wildfire situation in New Brunswick has gotten worse. 3 fires are labeled out of control. One in Miramichi, one in Irishtown, and one outside of Bathurst.
New Brunswick is focusing most of its resources on a fire threatening a community just outside of Moncton.
The area of concern, that particular polygon, has as many as 900 structures in that region that potentially could affect an estimated 1,500 persons.
The province says it has requested outside help for the first time. An additional 30 firefighters from PEI, Nova Scotia and Maine are expected to join the firefight. And water bombers and firefighters are battling a blaze in Ontario's cottage country. It is burning in a heavily wooded area around Kawartha Lakes, northeast of Toronto. No evacuation orders have been issued, but the city is urging residents and visitors to avoid the fire area. These wildfires are being driven by extreme heat and dry conditions right across the country. Global News Chief Meteorologist Anthony Farnell is with me. Anthony, where are we seeing the heat warnings, and is there any relief in the forecast?
Good evening, Donna. Basically, the eastern third of Canada is under a heat warning right now, from southern Ontario to the Avalon Peninsula of Newfoundland and even including Labrador. Temperatures over the weekend and again today have soared above 30 degrees, 32 in Toronto where it felt like 40 this afternoon, 34 in Montreal, and the hottest temperatures are right here in New Brunswick. Miramichi, 37, and there are fires burning nearby. Tomorrow, equally hot across that province and this entire region. So what's going on? Well, this is a heat dome, and they are slow-moving weather systems, in this case a ridge of high pressure that extends way up into the atmosphere. The sun every day beats down and warms the ground and the air above it, and it feeds back. It gets hotter and hotter, and it also forces the jet stream and all of those low-pressure areas up and around it. So it's been a very dry few months, and this heat dome's only slowly going to break down. What's going to start the process? Well, it's actually this front pushing through the prairies. Needed rainfall over some of the fire zones in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. There's still some air quality issues, but it's a big improvement from just a few days ago. By the way, heat warnings have just been issued for parts of BC as well, as the temperature starts to climb out west as well.
Okay, Anthony, thank you. Australia now says it intends to recognize Palestine as a state, something Canada, the UK and France have already announced. Australia's Prime Minister says one reason for the decision is what he calls the Israeli government's disregard of calls from the international community about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza and Israel's failure to comply with its legal and ethical obligations. Today, Israel killed 6 journalists in Gaza, including Al Jazeera's Anas al-Sharif, who Israel says it targeted, claiming without evidence that he was a terrorist. The UN Human Rights Office says it is a grave breach of international humanitarian law. As Redmond Shannon reports, Al Jazeera calls it a desperate attempt to silence voices in Gaza.
Anas al-Sharif posted this video 11 minutes before an Israeli airstrike killed him and 6 others. They've hit Anas al-Sharif, said this journalist. 4 other Al Jazeera staff, a freelance journalist and 1 other man, died in the bombing of a media tent in the grounds of a Gaza City hospital. Israel's military has openly taken responsibility, posting an undated photo that appears to show al-Sharif with killed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. And document extracts, it says, prove the high-profile reporter was also working as the head of a terror cell, but it has provided no verifiable evidence of that. Israel first made the claims about al-Sharif in this video last fall, which he denied.
We considered that the proof given was completely insufficient. The answers we got from the Israeli government were not at all satisfactory.
Al-Sharif knew he was in danger. Shortly after his death, a statement appeared on his social media accounts saying, "If these words reach you, you know that Israel has succeeded in killing me and silencing my voice. I have lived through pain, yet I never once hesitated to convey the truth."
I think the Israel government doesn't have any shame in admitting that it's targeting journalists who are conveying what's happening in Gaza.
Israel has not made any accusations against the other victims.
Alerting the world to the plight of civilians in Gaza, even spreading propaganda, none of this is direct participation in hostilities. So these activities alone would not make this a legal attack.
Israel has long had a tense relationship with the Qatar-based Al Jazeera. Last year, it banned the network from operating in Israel. Donna?
Redmond Shannon in London, thanks. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, Israel, which prohibits international journalists from entering Gaza, has a long-standing documented pattern of accusing Palestinian journalists of being terrorists without providing any credible proof. The CPJ says 192 journalists have been killed since the start of the Israeli-Gaza war on October 7, 2023. At least 184 of them were Palestinians killed by Israeli soldiers. It says Israel's army has killed more journalists in the 22 months since the start of the war than were killed worldwide in the preceding 3 years. Deliberately targeting journalists, the CPJ says, is a war crime under international law. The American president is still planning to meet Russia's president in Alaska on Friday. It's about ending the war with Ukraine, though today Donald Trump seemed to play down the likelihood of getting Vladimir Putin to agree to peace. Trump calls this a feeling out session and says the two leaders will talk about swapping land between Russia and Ukraine. As Jackson Prosco reports, it's unclear whether Ukraine will get any say in the matter.
Once Russian territory until it was purchased by the United States, Alaska will host a round of delicate talks aimed at curbing Moscow's imperialist ambitions in Ukraine.
I thought it was very respectful that the president of Russia is coming to our country.
U.S. President Donald Trump will meet face-to-face with Russian President Vladimir Putin Friday as he tries to negotiate an end to the war. After months of promising big, Trump is now setting expectations low.
And I may say, lots of luck, keep fighting, or I may say we can make a deal.
From the White House, he hinted any deal will involve concessions from both sides.
There'll be some swapping, there'll be some changes in land. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine.
Left on the sidelines is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who was not invited to the talks. Zelensky has already made clear Ukraine's constitution requires a referendum for any territorial concessions and warned Russia is preparing for new offensives. He is definitely not preparing for a ceasefire or an end to the war, he said. Trump insists this is just a preliminary meeting and nothing will happen without the Ukrainians.
The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me.
Left unsaid is whether Putin is willing to make any concessions that might bring about peace. Zelensky spoke with Prime Minister Mark Carney Monday. Carney says Canada supports the Ukrainian position that any decisions about the future of Ukraine must be made by Ukrainians, but adds that Ottawa will continue to cooperate with President Trump and the U.S. in talks. Donna?
Okay, Jackson, thank you. Today, Trump said he intends to crack down on violent crime in the U.S. He has declared a public safety emergency for Washington, D.C.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back.
Trump says he's putting D.C.'s police agency under federal control and deploying 800 National Guard members to the Capitol. He claims crime is totally out of control. The statistics show a different picture. Violent crime in the district reached a 30-year low last year and is down another 26% this year. Demanding a flight path for change. Coming up, what Air Canada's flight attendants are asking their employer for. Air Canada flight attendants held silent protests at 4 major airports across the country today. They're trying to pressure the airline to reach a deal with their union. A strike could begin as soon as Saturday. Neetu Garcha explains why Air Canada flight attendants are so frustrated.
Across 4 major airports, Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto and Montreal, some 1,500 Air Canada flight attendants walked out, not on strike, but in what the union calls a day of action. A strike could take place as soon as Saturday, potentially disrupting flights across the system. At Vancouver International Airport, known as YVR, the local union vice president led her colleagues out, pausing to guide airport passengers, mimicking the very duties they say aren't being fairly compensated.
We're not taking less than what we deserve, what we are owed, having been locked in a 10-year contract.
The union says nearly 300 flight attendants are taking part in this demonstration here at YVR, some of them fresh off overnight shifts, others on their day off, all here because they say the job they love no longer pays enough to keep up with the cost of living.
Union leaders across the country echoed the same concern that workers can't survive on the current pay.
Entry-level flight attendant at Air Canada makes $1,952 a month. They have to live in Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver.
Any of our federally regulated safety checks, which we do an hour prior to boarding, we are not compensated for. Boarding, deplaning, it averages about 35 hours a month that we are at work, not paid.
In a union-produced online ad, flight attendants accused the airline of profiting off unpaid labor.
They're charging flyers more than ever. And we're putting in thousands of unpaid hours.
In a statement, the company said it respects their right to demonstrate and it's focused on achieving a negotiated settlement with CUPE, one that recognizes the contributions of its flight attendants by making them the best paid in the country. For a strike to begin Saturday, the union would have to give 72 hours notice. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
Many Canadians are still avoiding travel to the U.S. Trips south remain lower than average for the 7th month in a row. New data from Stats Canada shows return trips by car from the U.S. fell nearly 37% in July compared to the same time last year. Air travel from the U.S. also dropped more than 25% during the same period. Watering down Canada's wildfire season ahead, the potential solutions that could help prevent fires from starting. Canada is in the midst of its second worst forest fire season on record, raising the question of what more can be done to reduce the numbers. Climate change causing heat waves and extreme weather means wildfires and their smoke appear to have become an unavoidable reality. And as Heather Yurix West reports, a coordinated strategy, along with better forest management and new technology, could become essential tools in the firefight.
With smoke blocking out days of summer sunshine and tens of thousands once again forced from their homes, there is consensus among climate experts that Canada's wildfire problem is likely here to stay.
That doesn't take away from the fact that we can do a better job of learning to live with fire.
Starting with a more coordinated response. While the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre manages the country's wildland firefighting resources and the international crews that arrive each year to help, Canada's 124,000 municipal firefighters aren't organized in the same way.
We need the ability to work closely with our colleagues, firefighters from across the country, to assist with response and coordination for wildfires all across Canada.
Stopping fires before they start is a priority across the country, prompting the governments of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick to shut their forests down. But technology could play a growing role in identifying hotspots before they ignite.
We use 4 different inputs: the ignitions, which is, is it man-made or is it lightning? We use topography. Fires move a lot faster uphill than they do downhill. Fuel maps, and then the fire weather index, and then we run it through millions and millions of simulations.
AI6 uses artificial intelligence modeling to predict where wildfires may flare. The company says it correctly predicted fires this season in Swan Hills, Alberta, and a number of other locations using this tech.
They can be somewhat useful, but it's not going to solve the underlying problem, which is that we created a hotter climate that is more likely to create these forest fires.
Meaning climate policy, a conversation muted since the start of U.S. President Trump's second term, needs to be part of Canada's forest fire solution too. The summers of smoke and displacement, a consequence of a crisis ignored. Heather Yurix West, Global News, Calgary.
History made behind the plate. Next, the MLB's trailblazing umpire. It should have and could have happened long ago, but now it finally has. Major League Baseball has a female umpire. Jen Powell is the first woman to call balls and strikes from behind the plate. Eric Sorensen looks at the significance of the moment and why there is still a long way to go in opening the door to women referees in professional men's sports.
It's taken 150 years for a woman to umpire a regular season Major League Baseball game. Jen Powell umping the bases Saturday, and on Sunday at the pivotal position behind the plate, fans wearing umpire masks and cheering history in the making.
Like, the dream actually came true today, and I'm still living in it, and I'm just so grateful.
Powell was a star catcher herself in softball, then turned to umpiring. For years, she worked her way up the minor leagues and finally to the show.
Yeah, I always wanted to umpire. Like I knew I had the bug. I had it in my DNA.
Powell is breaking one more barrier.
Visibility is extremely important. Certainly holds a lot of power when we start to see women in any position, whether it's a coach, where it's an umpire, referee, leadership roles.
The NBA hired its first woman referee back in 1997. A woman official has also worked the NFL Super Bowl. But the one sport that lags behind, the NHL. Officiating hockey is more physically demanding than umpiring baseball, but women are reffing in women's pro hockey and in the AHL. That's the pro league just below the NHL.
There is a lot of issues with access in hockey that will influence who can participate, who can lead, who can coach, who can become an official, and all of those things need to be addressed.
It's still an uphill struggle. The U.S. president recently ended federal diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
We are seeing pushback. That's a reality. I think at the same time, we just have to keep pushing for progress. It makes sense. We know that equity makes sense in the world.
And it makes sense in sport. Ask anyone who saw Jen Powell with aplomb handling a job women have never been allowed to do till now. She hopes it paves the way for others.
When I realized, wow, maybe I could be a major leaguer, then I just went for it,
In a sport that values its moments in history, this is a milestone that was overdue, but will be long remembered. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
And that is Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Backed by popular demand, Your Canada is going global again. All week, we've got pictures of Canadian pride sent from all over the world. Tonight, we're showcasing Hocotenango, Guatemala, Chauny, France, and from Conroe, Texas. Thanks for sending this in, eh? Keep them coming. Send your pictures of Canadian pride from wherever you are to globalnational@globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.